You're listening to the Leadership Blend Podcast.
I'm ready.
On the Thinking Out Loud Network. Check out the Thinking Out Loud Network at thinkingoutloudnetwork.com.
All right, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice, and my correspondent,
Simone Sharif.
Yes, Simone is back in the house. She's back in the house. All right, so today y'all are riding with us solo, which I'm actually excited about because it's been a long minute since we've actually been able to get into things and let you know what's really going on in this tumultuous world that we live in, because God knows there's so much going on. Actually, I was excited to be able to get into stuff because I'm like, there's just too much going on, and a lot of you are just getting to the point you're just throwing your hands up because it's like, I don't know where to begin. So that's why you have us on days like this to say, this is where you begin, and this is probably where you're going to end. So, Simone, what's on the rundown?
Yeah, so we're going to start with what's going on with 2020. It's a presidential year. We all know it's a very, very important year. We also have an election year in which our president was in the process of an impeachment trial, which I don't know if everyone knows exactly how that culminated. So we'll cover that. We'll start at the top. National news. We'll talk about some new laws that are breaking this year, especially ones that are most relevant to us. We'll cover some state news, some county news, especially as it pertains to our justice system. And then we have a little bit of entertainment news for everybody as well. So we'll try our best to hit everything. Oscars were yesterday, speaking of, which I know we'll get into that, but we at least want to make sure everyone knows what they missed so they don't have to go back and try to find it. So
Facts.
Okay. Presidential's where we want to start?
Yeah, let's start with the impeachment thing. What was it? What were they trying to achieve? Which was I just want to say before we get started, it was absolutely pointless, and they knew that going into it, it was going to be pointless. So, and actually, before we even get to, I need to say what I gotta say.
I can see you.
So yeah, I gotta say what I gotta say. So number one, I do not condone Nancy Pelosi ripping up the State of the Union paperwork. I do not condone that. I'm sorry, I don't. Just because he acts like a 5-year-old does not mean we're supposed to act like 5-year-olds. And you knew going into this impeachment trial, it was a long shot, especially getting it through the Senate. Y'all knew this. So y'all wasted 3 months to achieve what? But you probably have an answer. I don't have one. I don't know what they were trying to achieve. What were they trying to achieve?
So he was impeached. We do have an impeached president right now, technically speaking. So
what does that hinder, though?
Well, Nancy Pelosi wanted to make sure that everyone understood that we do have an impeached president. That is a very big deal. However, the difference between being impeached and then being the Senate actually convicting you and then you being removed from office, those are different procedures. Mm-hmm. So technically speaking, we do have an impeached president. And if you remember, Nancy Pelosi at the time, she was very she was hesitant to send the paperwork from the House to the Senate.
Like, she dragged her feet.
She dragged her feet, and she also was very hesitant with regard to impeachment in general. Like she was very much worried that the Senate was not going to carry it out. She was worried that we didn't need to impeach. It was really kind of the Democratic base urging for this impeachment, and we covered what was going on in terms of Ukraine and whether or not he asked a foreign nation to look into his potential competitor. But the Senate had to kind of push it over the edge. And unfortunately, the question was, were there going to be witnesses? And the House very much believed that they were going to need witnesses if they were going to get a conviction from the Senate. But the Senate got to vote on whether or not they were going to allow witnesses.
I cannot get there. How do you decide?
Yep.
Because that's not a normal thing in the court system. Like, is that a normal? That's not a normal thing in the court system. It
depends. It's like, there are certain reasons why, for whether it's the prosecutor or the defendant, that a witness may not be considered credible, or that they don't want that certain witness to appear. There was 2 articles of impeachment. One was abuse of power. One was obstruction of Congress. That's related to those accusations with Ukraine. And there was a vote on Friday about whether or not they would call witnesses to the trial, and the vote was 51-49 against witnesses. So this is kind of important, I think, and it's not like a victory, but it's a moral victory in a sense, just because, the Republicans obviously are running for election this year, quite a few of them, and they do need Trump's support. We know that Trump carries the entire party. And so for 49, essentially, to say that we want witnesses, we want a fair trial. If the president's innocent, no problem. Let's just have witnesses. But 51 said that they didn't think that'd be a good idea, that these proceedings were frivolous, that we didn't need to call any witnesses. And so that unfortunately failed, and most everyone agreed that without witnesses there'd be hardly any trial. So that's kind of how it ended. Mitt Romney being the sole Republican to vote.
Actually, we have to get the Breakfast Club gives Donkey of the Day. I'm gonna give Superhero of the Day. Superhero of the Day goes to Mitt Romney, because if anybody would have told me he would be the one to go against his party, I would have never believed it.
But him and Trump have been they've never had a great relationship. They've had moments of seeming friendly, but they've never had a good relationship. And Trump has been very ugly towards Mitt Romney in the past. And Mitt Romney is not of this new school of Republicanness per se. And he respected John McCain and he respected the process. And John McCain as well was somebody who, you remember being the sole Republican to vote against the repeal of Obamacare and how big and how epic that was. So Mitt Romney released a statement in a recent interview. He said that he, swore before God that he would be an impartial juror. And he said being impartial meant that we had to convict this man of articles of impeachment. He said that if there was any reason not to convict him, he wouldn't have convicted him. But he said he believes in his faith and he felt that he had to do that. And then Trump came back at the National Prayer Breakfast and said, I hate when people use their faith as excuses to justify their actions. But, be it the vote stands and he'll go down in history as the one Republican to do that and to believe that that President Trump should have been convicted and found guilty. So now if we have a great, strong Democratic challenger, and then we'll end up with a very different story next year. But, short of that, it will be Trump 2020. So maybe we want to talk about the election a little bit. We talked about this election so much. These Democratic primaries. By the way, Georgia's presidential preference primary is March 24th. You have to be registered by February 24th to vote in that presidential preference primary. It is just what it sounds like. It is the primary to pick your presidential preference. So you can register to vote. If you're a Democrat, you can vote on the Democratic presidential primary. You don't even have to be a Democrat, actually. You can pick up that ballot. You just can't do both. So you can pick up that ballot. You can pick which Democrat you believe should be on that ballot come the general primary. And then especially come the general election in November, on November 6th. But you have to be registered in T-minus 2 weeks. 2 weeks exactly you have to be registered by. So if you're not registered, call your county registrar's office, go online to My Voter page, see if you can get registered and pick your presidential preference, especially if you have such strong feelings about them. There's 11 total running on the Democratic ticket. Obviously, you can write in or protest or whatever. I don't know that that's necessary. I wouldn't advise that. Don't do that. But you do what you want to state your preference, because like you said, not just anyone could defeat Trump. So if you really don't believe Trump should be our president, you got to vote in this presidential preference primary. We've got Biden and Sanders that are, so according to New Hampshire, which this is the most recent primary coming out of, Biden is no longer number one. Coming out of that poll, Bernie Sanders is number one. He has 23% of the vote, and Biden's behind him. Biden and Buttigieg are tied behind him at 18%. This is according to a New York Times poll. And then in fourth place is Elizabeth Warren with 14%. In fifth place is Amy Klobuchar with 8%. And it just gets lower from there. Yang's still low. Tom Steyer's still low. Michael Bloomberg having less than 1% of the vote. And but it's still 11 total people in here. And March 24th is an important day. So if you think that there's somebody here who can defeat Trump and you really care about that, you want to pay attention to that date. What I do think is kind of interesting, though, is that Georgia is going to have an isolated primary. So all these primary states, New Hampshire is early on the list. Iowa's always first on the list. There was a big fallout with the Iowa caucuses. Georgia has its own. There's not going to be any other states going on that day. And we have all new voting machines, which is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, because you can provide insight on that because you saw that before you departed.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing. I think the biggest thing is that we got to anticipate it's going to take a little longer to vote than it used to in the state of Georgia because it's a whole extra process in between now.
I'm sorry, it was a short process to begin with.
Yeah, but it's going to be a longer process. So you got to anticipate that, which means lines might be longer, which means voting by mail is a great option. You may want to consider that. But again, it's still going to be a really, really important day. And right now, the Republicans are not even going to really hold, from my understanding, a primary in the state because there's just generally no point. There's no other Republican opponent with enough percentage of the vote to have a presidential preference primary. That's my understanding. That could change. But yeah. You just seem so deflated by this election.
Because I'm just at this point, for the Democrats, it's what did we accomplish? What is the goal? I just feel like whoever's in charge of the DNC needs to be fired. At this point, you have no clear vision at this point. We still haven't narrowed this down to even two possible candidates. I think the Iowa caucus had the lowest turnout ever,
That's
from what I saw.
true.
So I'm that should tell you something. That people's interest in this has waned. Unfortunately, politics has gotten lumped into like entertainment and stuff that we kind of go in and out of, but we tried to stay a little more in it. But I feel like y'all dragged this on for so long. Then you threw in an impeachment trial. You know, I'm sorry, but Auntie Maxine, you had a hand in this too, because you were sitting on the sidelines, but we're going to impeach Trump, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then you kind of disappeared. Where's Auntie Maxine? Like,
I think she needs to release a statement to
yeah, I mean, I just feel like she got everybody on board for this whole impeachment thing. Nobody really understood how the impeachment process worked. So everybody was all excited, particularly the Democrat base. Oh my God, we got him out, you know, blah, blah, not understanding that it was just not even half the battle. So, you know, people were all excited about thinking we were going to get a new president, which unfortunately for those poor dear souls, they didn't realize that we were going to get Pence, which is going to be pretty much even worse because nobody knows what he does. But, you know, I just felt like we started something we really couldn't finish. And I feel like now you've empowered Trump to even feel like he's more of a demigod for real. Because now he's like, now you really can't touch me. You know, I got you to a point where you couldn't even call witnesses. You know, I let you make fools of yourselves in the House. I let you take this to the Senate. Like, this is his mindset. So now he feels like, you know, he can literally do whatever he wants to do now without any kind of corrective hand, which is beyond dangerous for Trump. So I feel like you guys just empowered him. So I feel like this was not only kind of productive, it was an empowerment to an already reckless president. Like, it's ridiculous.
How do you feel about Pete Buttigieg? Because he got the most delegates out of Iowa.
Lord.
Are you excited about this? He's a mayor. He's young. He's in fact the youngest in the top spot, frankly. You've kind of, I think, mentioned that a mayor is kind of like a small governor, and the governors are great, you know.
I'm really excited for a young Caucasian male who went from being from the middle of the pack to the lead of the pack out of the blue. I don't even know when he became this popular.
Electable? A young Caucasian male, isn't that what's quote unquote electable? Because women are electable, and et cetera, et cetera.
Unfortunately, whoever goes up against Trump has to be ready for a WWE SmackDown. I don't think Pete Buttigieg is ready for a SmackDown.
Why would you think that?
Because again, Trump is at the point now where I'm almost scared I don't even want to call him a god, but technically, he's gone beyond a demigod at this point. So whoever goes up against him has to have not only experience, a quick tongue, a quick wit, and a real strong collective base to be able to go toe to toe with him. I don't think Buttigieg is that guy.
I think if anything, it may be the base that's the biggest question there. Like, I looking at him in the debates, I think he's perfectly equipped for a debate against Trump. I just wonder if, like you said, does he have that rallying cry behind him? Which I just don't know that but I also don't know that anyone but Sanders actually has that. Like, Sanders still has the same people he had 4 years ago plus. I mean, he's still got all those folks.
But I'd be lying.
It should have been the Bernster instead of Hillary Clinton.
I'd be lying though if I didn't say that my concern is his age and his health. Like, I genuinely do believe. But doesn't he look great when
you see him out? Does he look?
The couple of times that we see him, because he really can't be out like that. I mean, look, at this point, we have to be very clear about where we stand with these Democratic candidates. We have to be very clear about that. And like I said, number one, unfortunately, I do believe that Bernie Sanders is too old to win. Only because of the heart attack thing. This is a real... Thinking about the stress level that he's going to be under as the leader of the free world, especially with where we sit with other countries and the relationships that we have and don't have with other countries and other places, is whoever comes in behind Trump is in for the fight of their life, because we've destroyed partnerships. We built partnerships with unlikely partners. You know, we have agreements all over the yin yang. I worry about Bernie Sanders' health, because a heart attack is a serious thing.
It is.
And to go into an office that's in almost disarray and have to bring organization to that, it's a big job.
What about the underdog? What about Bloomberg in this whole thing? He's got a lot of money, right? So he doesn't have to do any fundraising from folks. And he
most people would never hear me say this, and I never thought I would say this, but I have to say this about Bloomberg. He is the epitome of the entitled Caucasian rich male. The audacity to sit on the sidelines and watch this whole debauchery play out, and then to come running in at around December-ish and thinking, oh, I'm good enough because I have money to run Facebook ads, to run TV ads, and it'll propel me to the front of the list, is not only arrogant, it's disgusting to me to actually feel that way, to actually think that that's okay. I'm sorry. I just think that is the epitome of cocaine, the entitled white male that we talk about, I don't really talk about, but in this case, and like I said, people that know me know I don't say stuff like that, but in this case, I'm insulted that you believe that just because you have money and wealth, that you could walk into a presidential candidacy race that has been filled with 25 candidates out the gate, and we barely gotten it down to 11, to throw your hat in the ring in almost January and feel like because you're rich and can run commercials that should propel you to the front of the list. I'm disgusted, and the audacity of you.
My God.
That's how I feel about. That's how strongly I feel about it. The audacity of you to believe that and think that that's cool. No.
I guess part of the reason I'm so shocked is because not just you. A lot of Democrats are very disappointed in this field. So I guess in my mind, like, that would probably trump, the fact that you feel like, well, this is a little entitled, is that according to him, and this was his own words when he was coming out, there is nobody who can win right now. I have to step up. It would be wrong for me not to step up. I have the means to step up. Please. And we don't have a field right now that can beat Donald Trump. So here I am. And I don't even have to fundraise,
Again, the problem with this is, then if that's what you believe, because I'm sure you didn't wake up one day and believe that out of the blue. Yeah. If you have believed that since we'll say the middle, been in the race, you should have put in the work to get into this thing, get on the stages, have the debates, fight with folks, go back and forth with folks, do the Twitter war with Trump. You should have done all the work before you decided to sit on the sideline and say at the very last minute that, I'm the savior and nobody else is worthy to go up against Trump but me because I'm another billionaire and 2 billionaires should go at it. That's kind of what
benevolent and one is not so benevolent.
That's honestly how I feel about him at this point.
It's kind of turning into a comic book in a sense.
It is a comic book. This is an absolute sitcom of disgust. I mean, again, the level of arrogance to feel like you could walk into this just because you have money. And like I said, I'm sorry, maybe there's another viewpoint. I don't see another viewpoint. That's solely what it looks like. You have money, you can run commercials, you can get in front of us because you have money, and we're supposed to swoon over you, and now you're the savior that's going to save the Democratic Party because you're the number one candidate.
Or potentially the country.
Yeah, because you're the number one candidate.
Right.
I believe that Buttigieg should be the candidate? I cannot say that I do. I'll ask you this. Where does he stand with the African American vote?
So that's what people are saying. People are saying that Pete Buttigieg, I keep wanting to say Buttigieg, and just by itself, which is kind of weird. Pete was struggling with black voters for a long time in the beginning. And I remember one of the first things that kept coming out was how he handled a couple of police brutality incidents back in South Bend as mayor and how he handled them poorly. So back in like October, November timeframe, I was thinking like, there's no way that this man ever gets a black vote. I don't know if at the time it didn't seem like he was shining in terms of getting the gay vote, which I think a lot of people assume would be a given. But now it seems like he's polling decently with black vote. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's the fact that others are falling in the polls and so he's rising by default. I really don't understand how between Iowa and New Hampshire, or how he made it out of Iowa the way that he did, other than the fact that I think folks are just getting disappointed with the others. Like Biden's, I think, maybe losing steam. And so by default, other folks are shooting up. But in terms of any changes in his pitch or changes in it, I don't see it. I just don't see it. So.
Well, but that's my question. Until you get the heavy hitters in the LGBTQ community to come out and say, we are definitively endorsing Buttigieg, I'm concerned, because if you can't even get your outright community, which is LGBTQ, how are you going to get anybody else? Like, my question now is, who actually put him at the forefront in Iowa? Like, who voted that? Like, I don't understand.
So the Iowa caucuses, especially the way that caucuses work, there was less turnout than previous years, kind of like you mentioned.
Yeah, apparently they said it was the lowest turnout pretty much ever.
Right, but he did receive 15% of all of those voters. So in Iowa, there was 1,600 precincts, there was 99 satellite precincts, and there was 41 total delegates. So remember, this is a game of delegates. And he made it the best out of that room. One thing that I do think is important to look at is how poorly women did in that room. And the last thing that came to my mind was the last debate and the question of like women being electable. And I really, really thought, okay, this is either going to be great for Elizabeth Warren or it's going to be really poor for Elizabeth Warren. And the fact that Warren and Klobuchar are at the bottom, I almost feel like that question was answered. I almost feel like the people decided that no, we're not ready, because how did those two women just fall so drastically when Elizabeth Warren has never been this low, ever?
You know where I stood with Elizabeth, and I said it out the gate. Mm-hmm. There is a certain level of elegance and class that is expected, even of women.
I'm gonna hate this. This is just BS. This is just BS.
Call it what you like. There's a certain level of elegance and sophistication that is still expected of women when they're in the public eye. I firmly believe that despite the fact that Michelle Obama is beyond qualified to do anything she wants to do politically, there is still a certain level of dignity and class that she carries that carries over between all ethnicities, all races. I think it's that level of sophistication and elegance that we love, we adore, and the fact that she's beyond educated to do anything politically just makes her, puts her over the top.
And Warren is certainly very educated.
That's fine. She looks great on paper. I like what she has to say. I just think that Elizabeth did not exhibit enough elegance and sophistication and class when it came to not necessarily being on the debate stage, but just when she toured cities and the things that she did. You know, unfortunately, you do have to do kissing babies and shaking hands. And for women, it has to look a little different. I just think that's what it is. It has to look a little different. You know, we want to see you in the pretty gowns. We want to see you, being beautiful. And we want to see the feminine side. We want to see the feminine side, even of women in politics. I'm sorry. It's just what it is. We love. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to be honest. Did you not love to see Barack and Michelle?
Not in politics. This is why. But Michelle Obama was a first lady, right? So her role for most people was through the lens of her husband. That can't be said of Elizabeth Warren. I don't know who her husband is. I wouldn't know.
And that's not a problem for you. That's not a problem for you.
Absolutely not. I mean, she's a politician in her own right. She's not a Hillary Clinton where I have to come with a package. Like, she's just in her own right.
Fine.
Kamala
So let's
in her own
let's
right.
fast forward.
Women don't have to have a man beside them everywhere they go.
Let's fast forward then. So if she became president, her husband becomes the first man.
Yeah.
And we don't know crap about him right now.
Oh yeah, but I'm not worried about him as a first man. We're not vetting people's spouses.
Aren't we?
No, not really. I mean, did we see Mike Pence's wife when he was picked as VP? Did we rip her up and down?
We're talking about president. We're talking about president.
Okay,
When we saw Barack on the campaign trail when he was running for president, we saw Michelle literally beside him.
Okay.
Every man don't have to have a woman beside him when he does stuff. That's true. If we're gonna play double standard, then every man should not have.
With Buttigieg, and he, I've never believed that you have to be married or you should have to have a partner or that partner should have to pass the inspection if you are running for office. I mean, it just doesn't seem entirely fair.
I mean,
it just doesn't seem
doesn't it though? Because there is a role that the president plays, and there's a role that the first lady plays. So there is a vetting process. I just feel like it doesn't start at the same time. I feel like while you're on the campaign trail, we at least want to see them. We want to see you kiss each other, maybe hug each other. We want to see these things. We want to make sure you really love. We want to see these things.
Yeah.
Once you get into the house.
When I think of Trump and Melania, I just think like genuine love. I just think like a real connection between the two.
Okay, first of all, we're not doing Trump because Trump is the anomaly. So we're not doing Trump. But in the past, you have seen.
I want all these, thresholds that Trump has just bulldozed over. We need to keep those open if that's the case. If he can break them, we need to break them for everybody else. I think we should move on to the coronavirus. Because this is just getting to be a frustrating conversation. And I just don't know what to do with it.
Mommy, okay, so let me ask you. I mean, in our current state, how do you feel?
I'm very concerned if I put myself in the lens of a Democratic voter, I would be very concerned. Because again, I think you need that momentum. I think it needs to be built right now. I think that while Democratic voters are figuring out primaries, Trump's just kicking it, hosting fundraisers, because he's already got that spot. I think the Democrats need that same level of security. They'll need to get together in a closed room, say, okay, who's going to be the guy? All right, if I'm going to be the guy, you can be secretary of this, you can get this cabinet position, you can be that. Let's just all start dividing out what it's going to be and quit playing games because these voters are too fatigued. They're too fatigued to keep up with the who's going where in the polls. And it's just going to make people, stay home or forget to register on time.
Shouts out to Stacey Abrams, who has come back from the dead. And yeah, she's come back from the dead.
And you know why?
Why? I don't, but clearly you want to tell me. So why is she coming back from the dead?
She would like that position as well. She would like a cabinet position as well.
And you don't think she deserves
exactly why. I didn't say that. You were leading. You're prodding. I never said she didn't deserve that.
I'm asking a legitimate question. Do you think that she deserves?
So Stacey Abrams has been very active with her political action committee and with Fair Fight, which is basically a voter access or essentially a voter suppression movement. And they got a huge campaign here in Georgia that they just like doubled their staff or whatever.
Yeah, I think she's got some money too.
Yeah,
she
they host events all the time. They raise money all the time, basically just to talk about voter access, but also to continuously give Stacey a platform. They were selling her book at the last event over at Morehouse College. So she's campaigning.
We really doing that.
She's campaigning. And that's why she's made herself very, very visible. So, the coronavirus, I'm just going to spell it out, define what it is. It's a large family of viruses. So you're hearing it referred to one thing. It's technically a large family of viruses. It can infect birds, mammals, birds and other mammals, not just humans. That's according to the World Health Organization. These viruses have been responsible for several outbreaks. So they actually first started over back in 2002, 2003 in the Middle East. And it was actually Americans, either trips to China or spouses' trips to China and coming back with the disease that has caused it to spread now in the United States. And it's being considered now one of the deadliest diseases that there are. Essentially, it can be transmitted between humans through respiratory drops, through breathing, coughing, sneezing, and a typical surgical mask cannot block out those particles. One of the first doctors who came out talking about the virus has
he
passed.
just died.
Right.
The Chinese are in uproar about because they feel like he was silenced.
Right.
As a result of him breaking the story and trying to warn everybody.
Oh yeah, and it was kind of the symptoms are really scary because they're kind of typical cold symptoms. So headache, cough, sore throat, fever. I feel like saying stuffy head, best sleep. Basically, all the typical cold symptoms are symptoms. So it is very, very serious.
Okay, so apparently there's a new nightmare. I just find it funny that the name of this virus, it starts with corona. So no, people, just because it starts with corona does not mean it's a beer virus. I heard some fool saying it was like, oh my God, it's coronavirus. It has nothing to do with alcohol. I just want to make that disclaimer. Let's be very clear about that. But apparently, let's see, 135 people were confirmed to have contracted the virus on a Diamond Princess cruise ship in Japan. Apparently, there were 3,700 people on board, and they're under strict quarantine for a week. Officials say that it's been difficult to test and treat people. The virus has killed 97 people in China on Sunday alone, which makes it one of the deadliest days yet in China. At least 910 people have now died worldwide, and more than 40,000 have been sickened. Despite the virus spread, millions of people in China went back to work today after China don't play. After a Lunar New Year break that turned into an extended quarantine for many. However, many cities and businesses are urging people to work from home.
I hope so. They said 400 million people have been locked down in China to try to contain this virus. It's mostly in China, but like the map that they've got lots of cases over in Japan. So this cruise ship, in Thailand, basically all over Southeast Asia for the most part. It may even spread from there, but there was a university professor who basically said that their approach to treatment right now is kind of like shadowboxing. He says, we have no idea what we're hitting. Like, we're just doing the best we can and taking all these measures, but we really don't know how big it is. We don't quite know how easy it spreads. Obviously, they found out about surgical masks being inefficient from someone catching the disease. So,
which I've seen people wearing those things. Like, I just feel like we're getting closer to Night of the Living Dead.
Oh God!
I'm sorry. Say what you want to say.
Theories.
I just feel like we're getting closer to the Fear of the Walking Dead. I just feel like we're at ground zero pretty much every time we. Zero. Now normally I do not entertain conspiracy theories because my sister is one. My baby sister Shawnee is a conspiracy theorist. She's gonna kill me, but she really is. But I have to. We were talking. I have to agree. Now this time last year we were talking about the measles quarantine. Mm-hmm. And how the measles came back from the dead and had pretty much put New York City under quarantine, like to the point where people couldn't get in, people couldn't get out. Yeah. That was for a good month and a half. Then all of a sudden it disappeared. Yeah. Let's be real. Let's be very clear about this.
What are you saying?
It disappeared. I'm going somewhere with this. I'm going somewhere with this. Okay. But this time last year, we were having a conversation about how bad the measles was and how it had become an epidemic in New York. And they had shut down the borders and nobody could get in and out of New York. And they were quarantining, blah, 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 blah. Not even 2 months later, nothing. It was gone. It was dead. Then there was bird box came out. So it was some kind of flu. I think bird flu came back. Bird flu came back. Oh. All of a sudden, that was a thing for 2 months. Oh my God, it's taking over this city or this state. You can't get in and out of the state. We're quarantining. Then a month later, nothing. Now we got the coronavirus. And now it's killing people in China. They're stopping cruise ships because people on cruise ships, 1,300 people on a cruise ship. 3,700 people are on a cruise ship. About 200 of them are infected. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. We don't know what to do. Let's see what happens in March. Now, if this disappears in March, you're not going to make me believe that we're not getting ready for Armageddon. I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to understand. Are you saying that you believe that these are hoaxes? Is that what you're saying?
No. What I believe is that these are man-controlled diseases that are being released at certain times to do certain damage to get people scared. That's what I'm saying. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any stretch of the imagination, but people that have been following us and following these stories, this is starting to look a little fishy. I'm just saying.
Look, 82% of these cases are severe in China. This is bad. In the United States, there's been 12. Here's one thing I will say that it's not a conspiracy, but it is very distasteful. And my wife pointed this out to me, and I do agree with her. All of a sudden, when I was scrolling through my Amazon Prime, my Amazon Fire Stick, excuse me.
Oh my God.
Which I have several apps. I saw these different movies being recommended on these different platforms, and one of them was Carriers in 2009. And it's
they start popping up again.
Right. All of a sudden, I started seeing ads for Carriers, for The Crazies, for Cabin Fever, all of these movies about these random diseases. Bird Box. So I started watching Bird Box again. I was like, I forgot how great this movie was.
That movie, okay, great is a strong word, but it was entertaining. I would definitely say that.
I really loved it. So basically, I was like, they're really pushing this. Pushing these movies on us about all these things that just like these
because it's not coincidental. This is what it is.
Is that it's poor taste. It's poor taste. It's poor timing.
They trying to get you
There are some people who take these things very seriously, and you really shouldn't have movies about diseases that just travel through the air, make you want to commit suicide or whatever else Bird Box was about. It's just not a good. But I loved it, and so I was just binging on all kinds of movies.
I'm just saying, Contagion. This is not coincidental. But I will say, I say a conspiracy theory, but I will say this. Because I had a cousin that recently passed at the end of last year from a situation like this. We didn't know what it was. She got sick when she came to Atlanta. They said it was a virus that worked its way up from her feet to her chest. And she ended up being in the hospital for 7 weeks, unconscious, and she just kind of slipped away.
My God.
So it is very real for me.
Oh, yeah.
I may sound like I'm joking, but it's something to really think about because we just don't know. Mm-hmm. And, the family, we're still kind of trying to get over it because we loved her. My cousin, rest in peace. Crap, I forgot her name that fast.
And that's just no time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, this just happened like December-ish. And, it was a serious thing. We just don't know. We still to this time don't know. And I watched that process play out because, we were cool. So I watched that process play out where they called in infectious disease and, they were kind of shooting stuff at the wall and you're talking to the doctors and just like, we don't know.
Yeah,
and we cleaned her blood and we can't find anything. So this stuff is really real. And like I said, it sounds like a joke, but it's really not. Like these things keep popping up and it's like, okay, what are we doing? Are we creating new vaccinations for this stuff? If it pops back up again, so like,
well, that's why they were saying, like, they feel like they're shadowboxing, like they just have to try all these different things, and that's why they're doing all these quarantines. I've never been subject to one yet. So in the wake of some sort of a major health outbreak, I've never had to be quarantined. In my mind, I would think, cool, because I'm not leaving the house anyway. once I hear that there's a case,
that's because you're a weirdo, and I'm concerned.
Like with the Zika.
What?
With the Zika virus. I was like, I'm not leaving the house. And then they said Emory, they were bringing the patient to the Emory hospital. And I was in school at Emory at the time. And I said, well, if the patient's being treated here, all due respect, I'm leaving. I'm out. I'm not going anywhere near. This is going to be ground zero. And who knows what could happen. A lot of these doctors are, rolling the dice with their own health and their own lives. I was like, I'm going home because I feel like I would have no problem. Now, of course, circumstances are different for different folks. And like clearly in China, you're going to have to work. But
anyway. China was not playing. They were just like, yeah, y'all come back to work. Like you're not dead, you come back to work. If you're not dead and you're not sick, you come back to work. You can wear your little face mask if you want to, but you come back to work. We not trying to hear that. We done lost enough production, so you come back to work.
Okay.
So yeah, that's there's that.
Yeah. What about these new laws? Do you have the new law article? There are apparently some new laws, and this is a January article, but we didn't get the chance to actually get into it. But there are some new laws that are coming, and the very first one you're gonna love. The very first one is distinctly for you. No.
Minimum wage is set to go up in 72 jurisdictions this year, according to advocacy group National Employment Law Project. Many of these changes are set to begin on the first day of 2020, which means check your state because you actually might be under the new laws with the pay raise because they were supposed to start the first day of 2020, which we've already passed. Though New York's pay raise is set to begin at the end. Actually, it should already start. They were supposed to begin in December 31st. 21 states and 26 cities and counties, mostly in California, will raise the minimum wage on New Year's Day. In 17 of those jurisdictions, the new rate will reach or exceed $15 an hour. Now, this really pains me to say, but I'm going to say, this really pains me to say.
It hasn't been a good thing for the economy, for the local economy?
That's not what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Unfortunately, when you live in a highbrow state like California, $15 an hour, I don't think that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
I think that still will keep you somewhere around poverty, somewhere near it, because the cost of living in California is ridiculous. Like I was having a conversation with somebody the other day. So $15 an hour in California, shouts out to California for making a move. But people, we got to tackle this inflation versus cost of living thing. Like, we got to tackle this formula, because right now it's just not a good formula. So them getting $15 an hour, kudos, but don't get excited. Now, $15 an hour in Atlanta, might make a difference. But in California, not so much.
Yeah, I think
it's
also a question about quality of jobs as well. Like, not just the amount of jobs. Like, there's like the amount of money that you're talking about per hour, those are probably jobs that were not in line to be the highest earning jobs in the first place. So the question is more so like, how do we get those people, all people, into high earning jobs rather than just filling the jobs that they have and bumping it up to, because I mean, how quickly could that wage kind of trump the wage of other people who are living and paying a lot of those taxes? Like, when I think about California, I start thinking about Silicon Valley. You start thinking about those entry level tech jobs or engineering jobs that are $80K or $95K. So it's like, when you've got jobs on that end, that number can only go up so high, you know. And I'm glad that it's not phased in. I mean, you claim that things are phased in far too slowly, and so I assumed that this was going to be like a 2023 thing. But it looks like it's already started. And
this is already started.
That's cool. Look, I'm not against the idea.
I was about to say, I want you to word this very, very. I want to hear this.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
What?
That's what I'll say.
What's
that
unfortunate?
It's necessary. That's what I'll say. It's unfortunate that it's necessary.
Because
ideally, people are able to earn a living doing things that significantly contribute to the overall economy, which does not require that we set a minimum wage. That's all I'll say. That would be ideal. I know everything ain't ideal.
I just want to say this is the same person that advocates vividly for Jeff Bezos and what's your other boy from Facebook?
Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, this is the same person that advocates
I absolutely do.
For them.
Because tech companies are leading the forefront of not requiring these expensive pieces of paper we keep getting to earn a decent living. And they are continuing to champion that. Microsoft as well. There was a big article that came out about, I think, on Axios this weekend, about how they're going from not just hiring folks like that, but like filling certain jobs solely with people who have no college degrees. Like, they're like portioning out a quarter of the workforce.
Oh, I just saw that.
They're going to pour into them to teach the kind of things that they need in their
When
companies.
I see that walked out, then I'll get excited. For right now, it's just it's a nice headline.
Had one of those
it's
jobs.
a nice headline for now. Until I see it actually get executed, it's a nice headline.
It is
nice try.
Executed to a certain. They're just now margining off certain, like, a specific portion of the workforce. I think it's great.
Whatever.
Plastic bags. What about these plastic bag laws? Do you see anything about that?
Actually, there was something about plastic bag. That wasn't where I was going next, but it is in here. All right. So, for those of you that already are bringing your little reusable bags, which I still think is preposterous, but for all of you that buy your little reusable bags from Kroger, and I think Walmart has them now, starting this year, because like I said, this was a January article. Let's see. For getting them at home could cost you.
Yes.
Oregon is the latest state to ban single-use plastic bags at grocery stores, requiring shoppers to bring their own bags or pay a small fee for paper ones. Mm-hmm. The city of Albuquerque, New Mexico, is also gearing up for a similar eco-friendly initiative. Single-use plastic bags, including compostable bags and plastic ones less than 2.25 millimeters thick will be banned. I don't know who gonna sit around and measure these things, but okay.
But the idea is, okay, so when I last time I went to DC, especially because I was taken aback by the amount. It's like you swipe your card or you see the amount of the total, and then there's this extra fee for this bag fee. Right? Or I went to go get a bagel somewhere. And then they were like, okay, well, $5 for the bagel. And then they're like, okay, so $6.79 or so. I said, $6.79? And it was the bag fees. They said, do you want a bag? I said, well, no, forget it. I'll just walk out, eat it with my bare hands like a caveman, I guess, because I'm not going to pay $2. These fees are kind of ridiculous. When you're buying a truckload of groceries, fine. $2 fee.
No, I don't even with buying unless I'm a coupon clipper.
Georgians, I think, will be riding in the streets if we have to get charged.
You see people like arms full of like produce trying to get to their car. Like everybody.
Nobody.
No, I mean,
do you use reusable bags? No.
The better question is, you talking to like 3 dudes. I don't shop like that.
Okay. Well,
so I can put all my stuff in a basket.
And in here? I just want to know who you.
Actually, I can put all my stuff in a backpack and go on through the grocery store and buy myself and put it in the backpack and be good. Like that's how little
your
grocery.
Eggs and your soft breads.
I don't buy the full thing of eggs. I buy like the little half carton of eggs.
Probably ordering
I don't eat eggs like
TV dinners and throwing them in.
Okay, what you're not gonna do is insult me, because Kelly's probably watching. She would be like, "Okay, so you really still doing that?" No, but what I am saying is, I mean, the level of outrage, when people.
This state don't care about that.
Now, let's be clear. For people who shop at places like Whole Foods and places like that, they don't care because you're already paying $25 for eggs anyway.
Ridiculous.
So therefore, like, what are those eggs called? Like, they're not. They're not farm raised eggs. They're like actually, they probably are farm raised eggs. So
that sounds right. Cage free.
Yeah, I don't.
But so I remember going to Sprouts. I did go to Sprouts in the last like couple of months.
Oh, so you spent $85 on.
Well, I got like 3 things.
Which cost you $30?
$29.99.
Exactly. There you go.
I said I will never come back to this place again.
Organic is a trap. Organic is a trap.
I do have some reusable bags, but I use them around the house for things. Like I don't actually take them to the grocery store with me. They had one for breast cancer month. I thought that was great. I wanted to buy it to support breast cancer. It was just like swag in my mind. I wasn't gonna bring it back to the store. For one thing, I usually need more than one bag. And then I just Georgia's not a state that even has recycling bins. So that to me is like the first thing. Why don't we recycle? Why don't we start
This is very true. This is very true.
Because in Oregon, especially when I go home and visit, there's a trash can that you put out to the curb. It's like this big. The recycling bin is like this big. Like they want you to recycle. You're going to end up stuck with your trash in your house if you don't know how to recycle. So that's how they do that. I think Georgia could just start with a little, recycling bin, pass it out to the homes, so we could try to do the right thing. But I think by the time we have...
My question is this a part of the trash pickup?
Yeah, it is. It is. They come on I think the same day or a different day, but it's once a week, same idea.
Are we having issues with getting those kinds of jobs even filled? Trash collectors? I believe we are. Because remember when we had Robert and Dana here, we were talking about the conversation about vocational schools has come back up vividly because we can't get a lot of people into a lot of areas.
But trash, what does sanitation engineering have to do with vocational school? I don't believe you need a 4-year degree.
Yeah, but is it a job that people want to do?
I mean, depending on how much it pays.
How much does it pay?
Or the benefits. I mean, you love benefits.
Whoa!
No, I mean,
whoa! Wait a minute!
Let me roll this back. There's a generation of individuals who really believe in benefits, and I thought I've heard you preach.
You make it sound like a dirty thing. Like, what do you mean? Like,
no,
because you know what? Just for that statement, I'm going. As soon as I get, I'm going to
texting and driving.
No, I'm going. No, I'm going to wait. Coffeyville, Kansas, where the poverty rate is twice the national average. There's an attorney, a primary attorney, Michael Hesenplug, has built a successful law practice representing medical providers to collect debt owed by their neighbors. So to go to your little benefits crap, there was a particular your little benefits crap. Now we've gotten to a place. Yes, people, we've officially gotten to a place where in Kansas you can be put in jail because you don't pay your hospital bill. So that little comment you made about benefits, if these poor people, there's a story about this particular couple with kids. One of them suffers from seizures from Lyme disease, and their son was diagnosed with cancer. So of course they fell behind in their hospital bills. Unfortunately, unbeknownst to them, they end up in front of a judge who sentenced the husband to jail because they could not pay their bills.
Wow.
Actually, he ended up in front of a judge. He didn't go to court. And I think that was the second summons. So there was a bench warrant issued for him. And he ended up in jail because they fell behind in their hospital bills.
Wow. So yeah, it's a debt collection court. That's crazy.
Who knew that was a thing? Apparently that's a thing.
That's crazy. And you know what? I'm sure he will have a great law practice because there's got to be something that gets, it sounds like to me, into our constitutional protections that we cannot be incarcerated for being poor. That sounds like something that you could start to build that kind of case. Obviously, that's after the fact.
Well, apparently, if you don't show up into court to pretty much say I'm too poor to pay my hospital bills, and you just ignore it, they will send a bench warrant out for your arrest.
Yeah,
so now I have to take time.
I don't imagine.
But I want to do the math on this. I want to paint this picture. So what you're saying to me is the fact that, because clearly I have to work every day to be able to pay this bill. So now you're saying to me, if I don't show up into court to stand in front of a judge, mind you, I have to take a day off from work because I'm already struggling to pay this bill, which I still can't pay because I don't make enough money. But now you're telling me I have to take a day off from work to appear in front of a judge just to tell the judge I don't make enough money to take care of my household, kids, family, whatever. I don't make enough money to pay this hospital bill. If I don't do that, which is going to require me to take a day off, which I can't afford, you're going to summon me and send a bench warrant for my arrest. Which, on top of that, now I got to pay bail to get out of prison. Which all this started because I can't pay a hospital bill. Which clearly I had to go to the hospital.
Like I said, it'll go really, really far because again, you can't punish people for being poor. But like, look at the picture that this article paints. There's a medical debt collection day. It's a monthly ritual in this town. It's just a city of 9,000 people. Look at the picture they painted. They said there was 41 people. 41 people who showed up one day. One individual knew from experience that they had to show up or they could be put in jail. They said defendants traded stories as they waited for their turn to be called. One woman recalled how at 4 months pregnant, she was arrested on the spot. Another individual was limping, sometimes having eye patches or bandages on their way to the seats with wood paneled walls. Can you imagine what that day looks like in that courtroom? People that are half dead and they're falling over and can't pay their bills. But
I cannot look. I'm not mad at the lawyer. Get your bag. Secure your bag.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is,
it's just unfathomable in the first place.
I can't. Again, you're asking.
That's how a lot of people feel who have to show up to court just to tell you that I can't afford whatever.
A traffic ticket. I mean, we know that that's the name of the game. You probably were speeding. You had no business speeding, or you were doing something you probably had no business doing. We get it. It's your penance that you have to take a day off to come to court because you were doing stuff that you had no business doing, whether it be it speeding or whatever case it be.
It's very expensive, even if you have insurance. So that's why I feel like
my point. So I'm trying to understand. The laws are meant to protect us and keep us, safeguarded, so on and so forth. Some of these laws that we're passing now are just like, who's representing the people? Because to believe that it's okay to summon me to court, to stand in front of you, take time out of my day, which I can't afford, to tell you I can't pay this bill.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
The thing is, it's like a revolving door because they need that money. And even the bail collectors, they get a cut of, the debt collectors get a cut of the bail. So like you were saying, you got to pay bail to get out. Well, a portion of that goes back to the debt collectors. It's like a cycle, and especially local government, they need that. Like, you're calling it penance to show up to court, but they need you to speed. I don't care who your city is or your court is. They need you to speed.
We know that because we know around the end of the month, we start seeing a lot more blue lights.
They need you to do that. They need you to break those laws.
It's fine. Which segues us to another bill that came out. No more cash bail. So New York State becomes the latest to end the money bail system, which critics call wealth-based incarceration. This is an old article, but anyway, on Wednesday, the state eliminates money bail for nearly all misdemeanor and nonviolent felony cases. The new law could free thousands of incarcerated people from the pretrial detention, according to a preliminary analysis by the Center of Court Innovation. Of course, there are exceptions: case involving sex crimes, domestic violence, witness intimidation or tampering, and terrorism-related charges, among others. Now, this is your area, so what does that mean?
Absolutely. So pretrial detention is just what it sounds like. It's the fact that if you are charged with a crime, typically speaking, there's going to be a bail set for you unless it's one of those crimes that's mentioned, unless it's a crime in which they just refuse to set bail because you're just too big of a public safety risk. So what happens is at this point, you've been charged with the crime, you've not been convicted, so you're technically still an innocent person. And you've heard that phrase before, innocent until proven guilty. So until a court convicts you of a crime, you are innocent, even at the point in which you've been charged for a crime. However, if you cannot meet your bail, which is going to be set by that particular judge, you can end up in pretrial detention, especially in the state of Georgia. This is a New York City law. So maybe for a crime like theft, or maybe for a crime like loitering or trespassing, whatever the crime may be, your bail is going to be set at X amount. Maybe it's $1,000, maybe it's $10,000, maybe it's higher than that. To make bail, typically an individual just needs about 10 to 15% of whatever that amount is to get out. But people don't always have that. There are people who are in jail for 30 days or longer just because they can't come up with $100, or it gets to be that bad. And then the argument for justice reform advocates like myself is just that, so essentially people are innocent and then punished as well, right? So even if I'm only here for a weekend or a week, that's enough time for me to lose my job. That's enough time for me to fall behind on my bills. That's enough time for me to be homeless or lose custody of my kids. So this list of consequences goes on and on and on. Your case may ultimately be dismissed. and maybe like a nolle prosequi. The prosecutors could decide not to pursue charges against you, or you could be found innocent, but you don't get any of that back. So it's essentially, New York has decided that they just don't need to do cash bail anymore. They don't need to let money be the reason why people are incarcerated. Now, there are critics of this even now kind of saying that you're letting people back out on the streets with all these different, this is determined by the judge, first of all. And there are people who criticize this and say that we need to put people, if they've been charged with the crime, this is fair, they need to come up with that money or whatever. But what this also means is that people who do have money, who have been charged with really heinous crimes, can just walk. So if you can cut that check, and maybe you're charged with all kinds of aggravated battery, maybe you're a serial thief. If you have enough money,
is that a thing?
Yeah. Hello.
Okay, I didn't know it was a thing.
Oh yeah, but if you have enough money, that also means you can walk. So it's literally the opposite of public safety, because we're basing someone's ability to be in society upon how much money that they have. So I think it's a good thing. I think it should be federal. Kamala Harris, R.I.P. in terms of the campaign, wrote a bill or authored a bill pushing for this to be federal. Georgia, we've tried in Georgia before. We'll try again. But basically, it's just a question of, your criminal consequences should start once you're a convicted criminal. You're not a criminal just because you've been charged with a crime. That's the idea.
I mean, I get it, but yeah.
Now, the texting and driving, I think it's kind of interesting because in Georgia, there are fines for, we have a hands-free law, right?
Yes.
The fines have gone up to, in some counties, $600. If you're
Are you
caught
serious?
If you're caught violating the hands-free law,
my God,
which is really exorbitant. There are counties, including Coffee, including Henry, and I'm sure many others, where the average or median income is $30,000 a year. So if you think about someone who makes $30,000 a year, that's about $12 an hour. So a $600 fee would essentially be like 2 weeks' wages for that individual. And obviously, like you said, you don't have to be caught texting while you're driving or doing anything. It's really distracted driving law, because it could also include, like, are you eating, are you drinking? But $600 is a lot of money for the average
That's ridiculous.
Georgian.
That's obscene.
It's incredibly high. So yeah, but texting while you're driving is dangerous, people. And so there's a lot of states where that's been passed. But in Georgia, I just wanted to highlight a couple of those counties where it's incredibly expensive. And sometimes they give out those little car mounts. So you may want to look into that.
Who giving them out? Yeah,
now, I don't know if you just want to walk into a court, but a lot of times in actual county courthouses, they will pass out little hands-free devices.
So that's your consolation prize for having to actually be here after they already got $500 out of you. We're
gonna be preventative, I think.
We're gonna throw in this little $10.
And then you really ain't got no excuse if you call yourself.
I just don't think. All right. This one interesting. So more people can sue over sexual abuse. California will suspend the statute of limitations for 3 years beginning January 1st, giving victims of all ages the chance to pursue prosecution. The state is also expanding the statute of limitations for childhood victims of sexual abuse. Under the new law, victims will have until age 40 or 5 years from the time the abuse was discovered to file lawsuits. Illinois will remove the statute of limitations on criminal sexual assault, aggravated criminal sexual assault, and aggravated criminal sexual abuse, regardless of the age of the victim. The state eliminated time limits on prosecuting sex crimes against minors in 2017, but adult victims still face a ticking clock. Previously, prosecutors had 10 years to bring charges, but the offense must first have been reported to law enforcement within 3 years.
They're trying to do this in Georgia, too. They're trying to eliminate all statute of limitations for rape cases.
How do we feel about that?
We talked about this a lot with Christine Blasey Ford with
Kavanaugh.
The Kavanaugh proceedings. Yeah, we talked about that a lot. We talked about time limits and just the pieces of evidence. I don't know how well this bill will do this year. I feel like especially Governor Kemp has really been talking about victims' rights, and he's really talked about how important it is that people who are victims in criminal justice system also receive a level of reform, that reforms can't just be for criminals in the justice system, which is a fair argument. So this could be a successful bill here. You look uneasy about it.
Because I feel like this is as much as we may not want to admit it, this will affect more males than females. Let's just call it what it is.
But more males are convicted of rape and charged with rape every year than females, and violent crimes in general.
Pesky hormones.
It's like 89% actually, compared to 11%.
I just think
so. Maybe all of y'all.
I just feel like before we pass these kinds of laws, we really got to look at who these things will affect, because, like I said, this is primarily men. Like, so now you're saying because it's a perception thing sometimes that we talk about this with Kavanaugh, like the fact that she felt like, even though she was at a frat party and, she felt like in his drunken stupor when he, I guess, exposed his genitalia. I think that case was so. Don't get me bogged down in the details.
That was a part of the case, yeah.
But she felt like years later, a significant amount of years later, that she was sexually assaulted or some things of that magnitude. Yeah, like she never got over that. When you erase the time frame, now you could say that when I was with Ricardo, I felt like he looked at me too long, and I felt sexually uneasy.
That's not funny.
I'm saying, like, when you alleviate time limits, and let's say at this point I'm 70 years old, and you're like,
all right, here's the thing. Part of this is just kind of like, this is a step forward in terms of people who really believe that it's just too difficult to prosecute rapes in this country. There are a lot of people who believe that rape kits expire or they're not properly taken care of. You know what I mean? There's a lot to be said about what's wrong when it comes to prosecuting rapes, and a lot to be said for how long we cover things up. And I'm sure you've watched Surviving R. Kelly. That said, then people make comments like they just made, who's defending Harvey Weinstein? He has a female attorney. She just made a comment over the weekend that was so flippant and so ignorant. She said something to the effect of, well, no, I've never been a sexual assault victim because I've never put myself in a bad situation. When it's like, do you know how many babies and young girls this happens to in their own homes? Like, what do you mean put yourself in a bad situation? Like, this situation finds people, and boys as well. So then people say ignorant stuff, and it's like, you know what? Maybe we're not doing enough because people are still ignorant as to how this actually happens, and they still believe you have to do something wrong to become a victim of this sort of a crime. So I don't know. I definitely don't see the problem with it on its face at all. At all? I think it just comes down to, again, what elements the merits of a case. Is it a he said, she said? Like, he said, she said is very risky, and it's not just. Justice doesn't prevail in that situation. So, But the time frame to me has nothing to do with merit of the case initially, I think if chickens come home to roost slow, they still got to come home. So
I've never heard you say that.
That's my own personal opinion.
Okay, well, I didn't tell you that this was going on the agenda, but I'm putting this on the agenda because somebody just asked about it. So a lot of conversation about good old Gayle King and her sit down with
oh no.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Thoughts what, as a female, your thoughts.
This is bad as a female.
As a female, your thoughts.
So as a female.
I mean, as a female,
I got to speak for myself first. Speaking for myself, I don't believe in cancel culture. I think cancel culture needs to be canceled. I think it's ugly. I think it's unhealthy. I think people need second chances. And I think people are going to say stupid stuff. And if you haven't, it's just, you're lying.
You're lucky.
You're lying.
That too. Everyone
has. And so, frankly, it's not even about being from the West Coast, but I am. And so, and Kobe is a demigod in my family. And so you just... Even if he wasn't, I just don't believe in speaking ill of the dead. I don't believe in bringing up things that a court has deemed don't need to be brought up. I just don't have that spirit about myself personally. And even if I did, I don't know that his situation warrants that it's brought up. I don't believe that we should treat this individual or that case like we should have been and treat other people. And so when I thought of Gayle King, I thought of R. Kelly immediately. That said, though, I would like to say that not even 6 months ago, she was everybody's hero. And the fact that people can turn so quickly is disturbing to me. And don't take, I'm not going to be one sentence away from saying F someone when I didn't feel that way about that. I just don't move like that. So that's my personal opinion.
I mean, my question was, because I saw the interview, my question was, I think those cases were like from 2004. You're talking about almost 16-year-old cases. I didn't understand why that was relevant. Because she was like, well, they only showed one part of the interview. Well, I watched the entire interview. So I still don't understand why that had to be a part of the interview. I don't get it. Like, I don't understand.
Did you think she was putting it off on the network? Like, how do you feel about her apology?
I honestly don't think she knew what to say. Because when you've never been victimized by public opinion and cancel culture, you don't really know what to say. Because like you said, she's used to being, and I'm not being funny, but let's just be real. She's used to being in Oprah's shadow, which Oprah has a very big shadow. Because, Oprah can cover a lot of stuff. So when not even Oprah can come to your aid and you're really being attacked, because there's nothing Oprah can say, because there was an interview that Oprah did. Yeah. And it was like, well, how's Gayle doing? She's like, we know. And Oprah started tearing up. She's getting death threats and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'm sorry, sweetie. Welcome to the real world that we all live in, where there's no cover and there's nobody to overshadow you to make sure you're good. I think she paid a price for journalism. She felt like it was a part that, she needed to ask about. I get it as a journalist, but I also understand that free speech should not always be free speech. And the Bible always has a passage that says everything that is expedient is not lawful, meaning just because you can doesn't mean you should. So yeah, you could have asked about it, but was that really necessary? Compliments to Lisa for sitting there, and she went through it and was like, I'm not changing my stance. This is what it is. And do I feel like Gayle kind of harped on it? I kind of feel like she did, because she kept asking the same question. Whether you phrase it differently or not, it's kind of the same question.
Yeah, my fear is more so that, like, as this escalates, like, I Stand With Gayle King is now trending. Like, Susan Rice, I feel like, kind of made a low-key threat. Not even a low-key threat, just a threat. Like, I kind of feel like now we get to the point where it's like, okay, maybe a comment was made that was a little harsh and a little threatening towards her. And now there's been all these people responding on her behalf. And now I feel like it's just going to go back and forth and back and forth. And Rose McGowan, who's like the face of the Me Too movement, is basically calling Snoop a terrorist, essentially. And I just think that, and now we keep evoking Kobe's name because he was the subject of the initial conversation. So it's like we're having a conversation about somebody who is and was a hero to a lot of people. And now we're having conversations that are about all this other stuff. So I also kind of feel like this is a closed door conversation. This should not be dragged out in front of Twitter. I feel like y'all are airing family business in the public so that The Hill can write about it, and Washington Examiner can write about it. As a culture, we tend to believe that we conduct ourselves a certain way on a national stage. And I just feel like there are too many people who are not invested in who Kobe is to us or who Gayle King is to respect this conversation and to just let it end where it shouldn't. Now I feel like it's not going to end. Like, now I just feel like it's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse.
Well, the problem with this is now it puts Oprah and Gayle under more scrutiny, because now the conversation is, okay, they've been doing this for a good little while, putting black men under a deeper microscope than other people. And the primary thing was Harvey Weinstein. Well, he's technically a pedophile. And but you were willing to go after, because not even 3 months ago, I was talking about Russell Simmons' open letter to Oprah and saying, hey, why are you doing this documentary about me? We were supposed to be pretty much homies. I've been on your show, which he was the Soul Sunday thing. He was one of her go-to people. Now, all of a sudden, you're willing to be in and sign your name, whether you're a part of it or not, your name's on it, with this documentary that's pretty much is looking into my past with the sexual allegations against me. And here we sit again with Kobe and Gayle.
I just hate but even like, so in Rose McGowan's statement that just came out, and I know we don't have too much longer, but she said, quote unquote, Kobe apologized. Snoop and others need to stop terrorizing Gayle King. Truth hurts. Kobe stopped hurting women. So now you can stop. So now we just keep.
She said that.
What are you talking about? Yeah, what are you talking about?
Now, the saddest thing about that is,
and that's part of why people don't apologize is because it's an admission of guilt in so many courtrooms and to so many people. Like, part of the reason why, as people are clamoring for an apology, and even now going back to the Kavanaugh trial, when they said he was just so cold and heartless, and he didn't even have the audacity to just apologize at something. Because a lot of times when you apologize, unfortunately, other people take that as an admission of guilt. Like, this is however many years later, decades later. And now you're basically saying that someone was guilty who was not found guilty.
Literally.
And as far as a lot of people are concerned, was not guilty.
Well, I told you, I've been scared of this whole, where we were headed with this whole court of public opinions. It carries almost more weight than the actual court system at this point.
That's true.
It doesn't matter whether you're found innocent or guilty. If the public decides that you're guilty,
gone, everything is gone. Yeah.
And we're not even asking anymore. At one time, it was like, the endorsement people would sit down and say, well, are you really guilty? Now we're not even asking. If enough people get on Twitter and it becomes a trending topic, we can't even be associated with you.
Right.
Doesn't matter whether you're guilty or not. We can't even be associated with you.
Yeah.
Is that fair? No, it's not fair. That's what we have a court system for. But it's terrible. Like, and here we are. This is just here we are.
Yeah, we got somebody shut this down. Somebody get a meeting together with the entire black delegation. This is a closed door.
And who would that be?
I mean, Oprah will probably be there.
No, we don't. No, we're not.
But she'd have to be
we're
there.
Not. Oprah
so she'd have to recuse herself because she's too involved with the case.
Yeah, Oprah can't be, which is ironic because in the black public court of opinion, she's the judge. Like, whatever Oprah says, we ride with. And now it's not so much. It's
she's an attorney. They're attorneys. They'll understand. They need to step into this conversation. Journalists need to step out of this conversation. The attorneys need to step in.
Oh, because that'll make the conversation so much better when you start adding in lawyers.
I don't think Barack would have ever made this mistake, or Michelle.
I mean, of course not. But I mean, it's
so this needs to be a closed door meeting. We need to shut this down and quit letting white celebrities and white Hollywood weigh in on this conversation.
Well, that's going to be next.
First and foremost,
that's going to be
next. It's already started.
Because they're going to drag Rose. Which I like Rose, but I like the old Rose from Charmed. Snoop. I don't know about this new ball Rose, but I like the one from Charmed. That was my chick.
Yeah.
But I mean, I will say that, and this is a whole other conversation we won't get into, but I do want to throw this out there. I have been concerned lately, as of late, when people start pointing out little things, particularly in that circle, Gayle, Oprah, Tyler, of the portrayal of black men, which you don't really pay attention to, but now I am starting to pay attention to. And it's just like, okay, you have 5 shows. How are you portraying black men in these 5 shows? You have movies. How are you really portraying black men, considering the fact that you are one, in these movies? And that has become a very important trending topic as it pertains particularly to Tyler Perry. Unfortunately, too much is given, much is required. You're the one that's doing it. You're a black voice, a strong black voice. So how are you portraying black men in your movies, in your sitcoms, and so on and so forth? Not saying either way. It's just something that we may have to eventually have to have a conversation about.
Yeah.
I did go to the premiere of Fall from Grace. So I was in the room with him. I will say that Tyler Perry, the inspirational speeches he does give those on the fly. Oh, yeah. You left the room feeling like you were on cloud 9. And to see Crystal, who was the lead, who had never had a lead role in anything over I would say she has to have almost a 30 to 40 year span. I didn't know she was the girl from In the Heat of the Night. I used to love that show. And we talking about a show that was out in like the 1980s.
He gives people opportunity.
So she has like 30 years of acting experience under her belt, and to never have had a lead role and to get it finally at the end of 2019, kudos. But, it is what it is.
Hats off to Lisa Leslie. She's a composed person. I don't think people who follow her were really shocked, but sometimes in those situations you can act out a character, and I think she handled it really well.
Probably would have, been like, stop asking me the same question. I've already answered the same question. She handled that really well. You can stop rewording it. It's the same question. But she did that. All right, last thing is the Nicki Minaj thing.
Oh, I can't even begin. Essentially,
since you had it.
Just to wrap it, another lesson about keeping things out of Twitter and keeping things off of social media that don't belong there. Now, airing your dirty laundry. Nicki Minaj and Meek Mill went back and forth, had explosive social media fights starting last Wednesday, basically trading allegations of malicious behavior and abuse. There's no clear, concrete proof, I don't believe, of how it started, but the belief is that there was a meme mocking Minaj's husband that Meek Mill liked, and that just kind of set this whole thing off, in which when she came at him and called him a female dog, and he came back and basically highlighted that her brother was an accused child molester.
I don't even know how that becomes a thing.
Which she came back and said that, there's video evidence that you are an abuser and that you've, abused your family and myself and your sister, things like that. So it went back and forth for a very, very long time. And I guess they saw each other over the weekend and had like a shouting match of some sort at a store. But basically, it became a topic of speculation again because 2 people were on social media and decided that they would just discuss things on social media.
2 exes. Let's make this clear.
2 exes.
Let's be very clear about this. 2 exes.
Yeah. Yep, that's very true. Now, Nicki Minaj's brother was sentenced, I think, the early part of last week for that case. That's a big deal. That's a sensitive,
I don't know.
Now, I'm not even going to get into that. I have a conflict of interest because he's the founder of the organization I work for.
Who?
Meek Mill.
Oh.
I'm the campaign organizer for the Reform Alliance, so I really can't even comment on this.
You shouldn't even have said anything because I wouldn't have brought it up. You the one came in with that story.
Well, it's just a story. It's just the headline. It's just a story. But I really can't comment at this point any further.
Yep.
The Daily Beast has more if you're interested in that story.
Okay, well, in other news, Janet Jackson announces album and tour date. Shouts out to Miss Jackson if you're nasty. Apparently, she's going back on the road and she's going to have a new album, both entitled Black Diamond. So this
I'm happy for that.
Should be interesting. I'm not a Janet Jackson fan.
I say, hold on.
I love her. I'm just not a Janet Jackson. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Janet Jackson. So kudos out there. Shouts out to her. So final thought.
My final thoughts again. I have to be like, it has to revolve around registration. So, presidential preference primaries, March 24th. Get registered to vote. You have to be registered by February 24th. Don't assume that you're registered if you know you have not voted in a while, because we have something called a purge.
That they are really doing.
If you have not voted in a while, you are probably going to find yourself on that list, on that inactive list, and that means you will not be able to vote. So don't stroll into a polling place and act shocked. If you haven't checked your status, just check your status now, especially if you know you haven't voted in a while. And the actual November election, November 6th, you have to be registered to vote by October 5th. So just get registered in time. You can't just register once and call yourself done with it. You're going to have to register for every single election you want to participate in, because that's how honduras they make the process. So.
Ugh, that's disgusting. That's the way it's set that way. Pete, I just want to put this out there. If you're going to be taken seriously as you go to state, you're going to have to get people like Ellen and other LGBTQ people to really get behind you if you're going to be a serious competitor to go to this WWE SmackDown with Trump-Rilla. That's what we can call him, Trump-Rilla.
Solid advice.
So you will have to get some real backing. It's cute that you came out victorious in Iowa. That's cute. But if you're really going to be taken seriously, you will have to get the LGBTQ community behind you and get the heavy hitters to actually come out and co-sign on you. Because right now it's cute. But as you travel, it's going to become less cute. And like she said, you got to vote. And people just be aware of what's going on in the world. Because there's a lot going on. And just be careful. So we will see you guys next week. I think next week we're actually alone again. So we get to do more of this, which I actually love. We can do more of this next week. So we will see you next week, same time, same place, on the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.
You're listening to the Leadership Blend podcast.
I'm ready.
On the Thinking Out Loud Network. Check out the Thinking Out Loud Network at thinkingoutloudnetwork.com.